The humanity's dawn shuddered as it tore through hyperspace, its reactor core bleeding radiation into the engine compartment. Warning lights bathed the bridge in an angry red glow, while the ship's automated systems blared urgent alerts through every speaker. Status report. Captain Emma Mitchell gripped her command chair as another violent tremor rocked the vessel. Her weathered face reflected decades of experience navigating the treacherous waters of Dynasty space, but even she had never cut an emergency exit from hyperspace this close. Engineer Amanda Cole's voice crackled through the comm system, heavy with static and worry. "The containment field is failing, Captain. We've got maybe 20 minutes before total core breach." "Understood." Mitchell's fingers danced across her console, pulling up the navigation charts. They were deep in Dynasty territory, far from any safe harbor. Her eyes settled on a single point of light, Outpost 47, a remote refueling station. Her jaw clenched. They had no choice. "Helm, set course for Outpost 47. Communications, prepare our merchant credentials." She turned to her right, where Jack Turner worked feverishly at his communication station. "Make sure those forged Dynasty permits hold up, Jack. We can't afford any close inspection." The humanity's dawn dropped out of hyperspace 3 kilometers from the station, its hull crackling with residual energy. The massive structure loomed before them, a testament to Dynasty engineering. All sharp angles and gleaming metal, adorned with the Empire's distinctive crimson markings. "Dynasty Control is hailing us," Turner reported, his fingers hovering over the encryption controls. "They're demanding identification and purpose." Mitchell nodded, activating the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the captain. Maintain Protocol 7. Remember, we're just another merchant vessel making an emergency stop." She switched to external communications, her voice shifting into the precise, formal tones expected by Dynasty authorities. "Outpost 47. This is the merchant vessel Southern Wind, requesting emergency docking clearance. We have a critical reactor malfunction." 10 seconds passed as the station processed their credentials. Mitchell watched the radiation warnings climb higher on her display. If they were denied docking rights, the ship wouldn't survive long enough to find another option. "Southern Wind, you are cleared for emergency docking at Bay 12. Be advised that all crew must remain aboard during repairs unless specifically authorized by station security. Acknowledged control. Beginning docking procedures." As they maneuvered toward the assigned bay, Security Chief Nathan Roberts approached the command chair. "Captain, I've got teams ready to protect our sensitive areas. If they try to board, they won't." Mitchell's voice was firm. "The Dynasty's greatest weakness is their own arrogance. They won't waste resources inspecting what they believe to be a simple merchant vessel." She managed a tight smile. "Especially one as outdated as ours." The docking clamps engaged with a loud thunk that echoed through the hull. Engineer Cole's team immediately began work on the reactor, racing against time to prevent both a core breach and unwanted Dynasty attention. Turner's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, you need to see this." His hands moved across his console, bringing up a decoded transmission on the main view screen. "I found it buried in our cargo manifest data. Someone hid it there deliberately." Mitchell leaned forward, studying the stream of numbers and coordinates. "Can you clean it up?" "Already working on it." Turner's expression grew more intense as he processed the data. "It's not just coordinates, Captain. There's a message encoded within them." He paused, double-checking his translation. "It says, the chains can be broken. The key lies in humanity's past." Before Mitchell could respond, Cole's voice came through again. "Captain, we've got Dynasty security requesting access to inspect the reactor damage. They're citing safety protocols." Mitchell shared a knowing look with Roberts. The Dynasty never cared about merchant crew safety. Something else had caught their attention. "Stall them," she ordered. "Tell them we're venting radiation and the compartment isn't safe yet." She turned to Turner. Copy those coordinates to a secure drive and wipe all trace from our systems. Whatever we've stumbled onto, the Dynasty can't know about it." As her crew carried out their orders, Mitchell stared out at the station's imposing structure. They had discovered something. Something important enough that someone had risked everything to hide it in their cargo. Now they just had to survive long enough to understand what it meant. The Humanity's Dawn might be one of the last free human ships in the galaxy, but as Mitchell watched her crew work with practiced efficiency, she knew they might also be the last hope for breaking the Dynasty's hold on the stars. "Those coordinates better be worth the risk," Nathan Roberts muttered as the Humanity's Dawn drifted through the asteroid field. They had barely escaped Outpost 47, leaving behind a squad of confused Dynasty security officers and a carefully orchestrated reactor malfunction story. Dr. Lauren Hayes stood at her science station, watching the sensor readings with growing excitement. "The signal's getting stronger. Whatever's out here, it's putting out energy patterns I've never seen before." She adjusted her instruments, frowning at the results. It's like the energy is alive." Captain Mitchell studied the massive asteroid ahead of them. Its surface was unremarkable, just another chunk of space rock, except for the faint geometric patterns barely visible under centuries of cosmic dust. "Take us in closer, Helm." Full sensor sweep. The ship's floodlights illuminated a massive doorway carved into the asteroid's face, its surface covered in intricate symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Engineer Cole whistled low. "That's not Dynasty tech. Not even close." "Can we dock?" Mitchell asked, already considering their options. "The structure appears to have an internal atmosphere," Hayes reported, her fingers flying over her console. "But the power readings are erratic. Whatever's in there, it's operating on emergency systems." 20 minutes later, the away team stood in the facility's main chamber. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness, revealing walls covered in displays that flickered weakly to life at their approach. The air was thin but breathable, tasting of metal and time. "The architecture predates any known civilization," Hayes said, her voice full of wonder as she studied her handheld scanner. "This place is older than the Dynasty, older than any recorded history." "Stay alert," Roberts warned, his hand never far from his weapon. "Just because it's old doesn't mean it's safe." They moved deeper into the facility, passing through chambers filled with dormant machinery and darkened displays. In the center of the complex, they found what appeared to be a control room. A large crystalline structure dominated the center, pulsing with a faint blue light. Hayes approached the crystal, her scanner whirring. "It's some kind of quantum computer, but the complexity it's beyond anything we've ever encountered." She reached out toward a nearby console, and the entire room suddenly blazed with light. A holographic display materialized around them, showing star maps and streams of data in an unknown language. A voice spoke, its tone melodic and ancient. "Neural pattern recognized. Human presence detected. Beginning Protocol Omega initialization sequence." "Lauren, what did you do?" Mitchell demanded, as more systems throughout the facility began powering up. "Nothing. It responded to my presence automatically." Hayes stared at her scanner in disbelief. "Captain, according to these readings, the facility is specifically designed to interact with human neural patterns." The holographic display shifted, showing scenes of galactic history, the rise and fall of civilizations, the spread of various species across the stars. Then it showed the Dynasty's emergence, their brutal conquest of world after world. Protocol Omega was created to prevent this, the facility's voice explained. No single species was meant to dominate all others. The makers knew that power corrupts, that diversity must be preserved. "Why humans?" Roberts asked, still scanning for threats. "Why respond to our neural patterns?" The display changed again, showing detailed scans of human brain structure. "Your species possesses unique neural flexibility, adaptability, creativity." The makers saw these traits as essential for maintaining balance. "The Dynasty knows this. It is why they feared you." why they sought to contain you. Mitchell stepped forward, her mind racing with implications. The Dynasty found this place before, didn't they? They buried this knowledge. Correct. They understood that human potential, combined with Protocol Omega, threatened their control. They chose suppression over risk. A new hologram appeared, showing a complex network spreading across the galaxy. Protocol Omega was designed to create balance, to make absolute dominion impossible. But it requires human neural patterns for activation. The makers believed that only a species with your particular combination of traits could be trusted with such power. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Warning: Dynasty vessels detected in proximity. Security protocols engaging. How did they find us so quickly? Roberts demanded, already moving to defensive positions. Hayes studied the facility's readings. The power surge from activation must have caught their attention. Captain, there's too much here to process quickly. We need time to understand. Time we don't have. Mitchell cut in. She turned to the facility's interface. Can you transfer your critical data to our ship's computers? Affirmative. But the Dynasty must not acquire this knowledge. Protocol Omega must be activated from their seat of power, or their control will never truly end. Mitchell nodded grimly. Then let's make sure we get this information where it needs to go. Lauren, start the transfer. Nathan, get our defenses ready. She activated her comm link. Bridge, prepare for emergency departure. We're about to have company. As her crew rushed to action, Mitchell watched the ancient star maps swirl around her. They had found something remarkable, not just a weapon against the Dynasty, but perhaps the key to humanity's true purpose in the galaxy. Now they just had to survive long enough to use it. The Humanity's Dawn burst from the asteroid field with 3 Shadowclaw destroyers in pursuit, their black hulls gleaming like polished obsidian against the stars. On the bridge, Captain Mitchell watched the tactical display as streams of energy fire cut through space where they had been moments before. Status of the protocol data, she demanded, gripping her chair as the ship banked hard to port. Encrypted and secured. Turner replied from his station. But the Dynasty ships are broadcasting some kind of data suppression field. We can't transmit it to our allies. Admiral Vexthor's face appeared on their main screen, his scaled features arranged in what passed for a smile among his species. Surrender the protocol data, humans. The Shadowclaw fleet has never failed to capture its prey. Your obsolete vessel cannot hope to escape. Mitchell cut the transmission with a gesture. Nathan, what do we have to work with? Security Chief Roberts studied his tactical display intently. They're trying to herd us toward the Crimson Nebula. Standard Dynasty encirclement strategy. A slight smile crossed his face. But they don't know about the modifications Amanda made to our sensor array. Speaking of which, Engineer Cole's voice came through the comm. Those radiation leaks we faked at the outpost. I can make them real. Might mess with their targeting systems. Mitchell nodded. Do it. Jack, send out a distress call on all frequencies. Make it messy, desperate. Captain, Roberts questioned. The Dynasty expects precision, patterns. Let's show them some chaos. She turned to the helm. Take us into the nebula. Full speed. The Crimson Nebula lived up to its name. Vast clouds of red gas swirling like blood in water. The Humanity's Dawn plunged into the chaos, its hull creaking under the strain. Behind them, the Shadowclaw ships followed in perfect formation. Radiation levels rising, Cole reported. Their shields should be getting some interesting feedback right about now. On the tactical display, the Dynasty ship's formation wavered. Their energy fire became increasingly erratic as the radiation interfered with their targeting computers. They're splitting up, Roberts announced. Trying to box us in. Standard Imperial Naval Doctrine, page 47. He paused. Wait. They're launching boarding pods. Mitchell allowed herself a grim smile. Just as expected. Amanda, initiate Protocol Ghost. Throughout the ship, systems began powering down. Emergency lights flickered and died. To any outside observer, the humanity's dawn appeared to be dead in space. Boarding pods on approach, Roberts reported. 30 seconds to impact. Helm, on my mark, Mitchell said quietly. Everyone else, brace for emergency thrust. The boarding pods drew closer, their trajectories locked onto this seemingly helpless human vessel. At the last possible moment, Mitchell barked. Now. The humanity's dawn roared to life, its engines igniting with a burst of power that scattered the boarding pods like leaves in a storm. The ship spun on its axis, using the nebula's gravitational eddies to slingshot between two of the Shadowclaw destroyers. Dynasty ships attempting to compensate, Roberts called out. Their formations are breaking down. Send the distress calls now, Mitchell ordered. Full spectrum, maximum power. The nebula filled with a cacophony of emergency broadcasts, each bouncing off gas clouds and debris, creating a maze of false signals. The Dynasty ships hesitated, their rigid command structure struggling to process the chaos. They're firing blindly, Roberts reported with satisfaction, hitting each other more than anything else. Through her tactical display, Mitchell watched the Dynasty ships' perfect formation dissolve into confusion. Their attempts to pursue became increasingly desperate and uncoordinated. Based on their energy signatures, they're having trouble maintaining shield integrity in the nebula, Cole reported. Our outdated magnetic shielding is actually handling it better. Mitchell nodded. Plot a course through the densest part of the nebula. Let's see how their advanced technology handles some good old-fashioned stellar phenomena. As they pushed deeper into the red clouds, alerts from the pursuing ships grew more frantic. Their shields, optimized for energy weapons and high-tech warfare, proved inadequate against the nebula's natural hazards. Dynasty ships are falling back, Roberts announced finally. Their shield generators can't take much more of this environment. Good. Mitchell allowed herself to relax slightly. Jack, what's the status of the protocol data? Secure and intact, Turner replied. Though I don't think the Dynasty is going to fall for the same tricks twice. They don't need to. Mitchell studied the star charts, already planning their next move. We just proved what the facility told us. Human adaptability beats Dynasty technology. Now we just need to find some allies who'll believe it too. The humanity's dawn emerged from the nebula alone, its hull stained crimson from the gas clouds but intact. Behind them, the Shadowclaw fleet's perfect record lay in ruins, along with their reputation for invincibility. The Outer Rim station hung in space, like a collection of mismatched parts, its structure defying conventional engineering. As the humanity's dawn approached, Captain Mitchell could see why Dynasty patrols overlooked it. It looked more like space debris than a hidden resistance base. They're scanning us, Turner reported from his station. Multiple weapon systems just locked on. Hold position, Mitchell ordered. Let them make the first move. A harsh voice crackled through their communication system. Human vessel, you've entered restricted space. The Dynasty's lapdogs aren't welcome here. Mitchell stepped forward. We're no friends of the Dynasty. We just proved that by destroying their Shadowclaw fleet's perfect record in the Crimson Nebula. Silence stretched for several moments before a different voice responded, deeper, more thoughtful. Dock at Bay 7. Any suspicious movements, and you'll be vaporized. The docking bay looked more like a scrapyard, filled with salvaged parts and half-dismantled ships. Armed guards from at least 5 different species surrounded them as the crew disembarked, their weapons a mix of Dynasty cast-offs and improvised firearms. Commander Catal emerged from the crowd, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the bay's dim light. The Nexarian's faceted eyes studied them with open suspicion. You claim to have humbled the Shadowclaw fleet. Prove it. Before Mitchell could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Engineer Cole stepped forward, her eyes scanning the emergency readouts on the wall. Your primary reactor's containment field is collapsing. The Dynasty's quantum stabilizers were never designed to work with Nexarian power cores. Kittle's crystalline plates shifted in surprise. How could you possibly know? Because humans have been jury-rigging incompatible techs since we first reached the stars. Cole interrupted. Let me help, or this whole station goes critical in about 15 minutes. For a moment, no one moved. Then Kittle gestured sharply. Engineering is this way. The rest of you stay here. Mitchell watched her engineer hurry away with several resistance members. While we wait, Commander, we have something you need to see. Something that explains why the Dynasty really fears humanity. In the station's command center, Turner displayed the protocol data. Kittle and his officers watched in silence as the ancient facility's message played out. When it finished, the commander's crystalline form had taken on a deeper, more troubled hue. This explains much, he said finally. Why they worked so hard to isolate human worlds. Why they spread propaganda about your species being dangerous and unstable. A sudden tremor shook the station. Kittle reached for his weapon, but Mitchell held up a hand. Wait for it. The tremors stopped. Moments later, Cole's voice came through the station's comm system. Reactor stabilized. I bypassed the quantum stabilizers entirely and rigged a magnetic containment field using parts from 3 different species tech. It's not pretty, but it'll hold. Impossible, one of Kittle's officers muttered. Those systems aren't compatible. That's exactly why it worked, Mitchell explained. The Dynasty's greatest weakness is their belief that everything must follow their rules, their patterns. Humanity's greatest strength is knowing when to break those rules. Another alarm sounded, this time from the station's perimeter sensors. Dynasty patrol incoming. A technician announced. 3 destroyers. They must have tracked us here, Roberts said, moving toward the tactical displays. Kittle's crystalline plates clicked in agitation. We're not ready for a direct confrontation. Our weapons are exactly what we need, Mitchell interrupted. She studied the tactical display, a plan already forming. Commander, your station looks like debris from a distance, correct? Let's use that. Nathan, what would happen if we combined your security protocols with their defense systems? Roberts grinned as he caught her meaning. Their targeting computers would have no idea what they're looking at. The next 20 minutes were a blur of activity as humans and resistance fighters worked together, combining technologies in ways their creators never intended. When the Dynasty ships arrived, they found themselves attacking shadows and debris that somehow shot back, their sensors confused by the impossible combination of signals. They're retreating, Kittle announced finally, his voice containing something close to awe. I've never seen Dynasty ships withdraw without clear orders. Mitchell nodded, because they couldn't categorize what they were fighting. It didn't fit any of their tactical databases. Kittle turned to face her, his crystalline form now glowing with a warm light of respect. The others need to see this. All the resistance cells, all the races suffering under Dynasty control. They need to know what's possible. That's exactly what we're counting on, Commander. Mitchell smiled. The Dynasty calls us primitive because we adapt, because we combine technologies in ways they consider beneath them. They don't realize that's what makes us dangerous, not our weapons, but our ability to show others how to break free of their constraints. The resistance fighters around them stood straighter, looking at the human crew with new understanding. They had just witnessed something remarkable, not just a victory against the Dynasty, but a glimpse of how it could be brought down. Medical Officer David Freeman adjusted his Dynasty research uniform, trying not to fidget as the security scanner swept over him. Their forged credentials had gotten them this far into the archive world of Nexus Prime, but one wrong move would bring the entire facility down on their heads. Credentials verified. The Dynasty Guard announced in the formal, clipped tones of their species. You may proceed to Archive Section 7. Freeman nodded with practiced precision, leading his small team through the towering crystal doors. Behind him, Turner and Hayes moved with the measured pace of Dynasty researchers, their borrowed robes concealing both their humanity and their equipment. Remember, Freeman subvocalized through their hidden comms, we have 2 hours before the next credential check. Let's make them count. The archive stretched before them, endless rows of data crystals reaching up into darkness. Each crystal contained centuries of dynasty knowledge, carefully cataloged and controlled. The air hummed with power as automated systems maintained the precise conditions needed to preserve the data. Hayes broke off first, heading toward the historical archives, while maintaining the appearance of a routine inspection. Turner made his way to the communication sections, ready to intercept any suspicious transmissions. Freeman approached the medical archives, his heart pounding beneath his calm exterior. Their intelligence suggested this section contained the truth about humanity's subjugation, not the propaganda the dynasty spread, but the real reason they had worked so hard to contain Earth's children. "Found something," Hayes whispered through the comm. "Archaeological records from first contact. The dynasty. They were watching us long before they revealed themselves." "Keep going," Freeman replied, his fingers dancing across a crystal interface. "There has to be more." Turner's voice cut in. "Security patrols are maintaining standard patterns. Wait, I'm seeing references to something called the human variable in these diplomatic archives." Freeman pulled up his own set of records, medical studies conducted on human subjects during the early days of dynasty control. His eyes widened as he read. They were terrified of us. Not our technology. That was primitive by their standards. They feared our ability to adapt, to change. "It's more than that," Hayes added, excitement creeping into her whispered voice. "I'm looking at records from their first observations of Earth. They watched us rebuild after disasters, overcome challenges, unite in the face of adversity. Every time they predicted our extinction, we grew stronger." Freeman moved deeper into the archives, pulling up more recent studies. They discovered that human neural patterns are uniquely flexible. We can forge connections with any species, adapt to any environment. Other races can be conquered through force or technology. But humans, we inspire others to resist, Turner finished. These diplomatic records showed dozens of rebellions that started after contact with human traders or refugees, not because we gave them weapons or technology, but because we showed them change was possible. A quiet alarm pulsed on Turner's datapad. "Patrol approaching. Everyone, look busy." They fell silent as a dynasty security team passed, their ceremonial armor gleaming under the archive's lights. Freeman pretended to study a data crystal until they moved on. "There's something else," Hayes whispered once it was safe. "References to Protocol Omega keep appearing in the oldest records. The dynasty didn't just find that facility by accident. They were looking for it. They knew the prophecies about human neural patterns being the key." "How much time left?" Freeman asked, already downloading critical files to their hidden storage devices. 17 minutes until the next credential check, Turner reported. "But I'm seeing increased activity in the security networks. They might be getting suspicious." Freeman made his way to a central terminal, using the access codes they'd stolen to dig deeper into the restricted files. One last thing. If the dynasty knew about Protocol Omega, they must have tried to prevent its activation. The terminal pulsed with new information, and Freeman's breath caught. "Found it. They didn't just try to stop it. They'd been systematically destroying every facility like the one we found. The one we accessed was the last one, hidden so well they couldn't locate it. Which means," Hayes added, "we have the only copy of Protocol Omega left in the galaxy. No wonder they sent the Shadowclaw fleet after us." "Time to go," Turner warned. "Security patterns are changing. They know something's wrong." As they made their careful way out of the archives, Freeman's mind raced with the implications of what they'd discovered. The dynasty hadn't suppressed humanity out of simple imperialism or fear of competition. They had recognized humanity's unique gift, the ability to unite diverse species, to adapt and overcome, to inspire hope in the hopeless. They had tried to cage humanity because they knew that, given the chance, humans would show the galaxy a different way to exist. Not through dominance and control, but through cooperation and endless adaptation. Now, with Protocol Omega in their possession, that chance had finally come. They won't expect us to attack a supply line directly, Navigator Maria Rice said, her fingers tracing the holographic trade routes. The Dynasty's tactical databases show no precedent for a merchant vessel engaging military targets. The Humanity's Dawn hung in the shadow of a small moon, its systems running silent as the crew planned their next move. After the archive raid, they needed to prove to the galaxy that the Dynasty could be beaten. Which is exactly why it'll work, Captain Mitchell replied, studying the projected flight paths. Amanda, how are those modifications coming? Engineer Cole's voice came through the comm, accompanied by the sound of machinery. Almost ready. I've rebuilt our weapon systems using parts from 6 different species. The energy signature will be completely unrecognizable to Dynasty sensors. Security Chief Roberts shook his head in admiration. They'll be looking for rebel ships or pirates. Not this hybrid we've created. The plan was audacious. The Dynasty maintained control through strictly regulated supply lines, each convoy following predetermined routes with mathematical precision. Their entire empire ran like clockwork, which made it vulnerable to someone willing to ignore the rules. Launch in 5 minutes, Mitchell announced. Remember, we're not just attacking their ships. We're showing everyone watching that the Dynasty isn't invincible. The Humanity's Dawn powered up, its modified engines humming with an odd harmony as technology from a dozen worlds worked together in ways their creators never imagined. Rise plotted an intercept course that broke every rule of Dynasty navigation. Convoy detected. Turner reported from his station. 3 cargo ships, 2 escort frigates. Standard formation. Mitchell nodded. Begin transmission on all frequencies. Let's make sure everyone in the sector sees this. The human ship burst from the moon's shadow, approaching the convoy at an angle that Dynasty tactical doctrine declared impossible. The escort frigates hesitated, their sensors struggling to classify the bizarre energy signatures approaching them. They're trying to scan us, Hayes reported, monitoring the Dynasty's response. Their systems can't make sense of our modifications. According to their computers, we shouldn't be able to fly, let alone fight. Open fire, Mitchell ordered. Pattern echo. The Humanity's Dawn's hybrid weapons sprang to life. Beams of energy that combine Nexarian crystal technology with Voraxian plasma matrices sliced through space. The Dynasty shift shields, calibrated for standard weapon configurations, might as well have been tissue paper. Direct hits, Roberts announced. Their shields are. They're actually reflecting the energy back into their own systems. The escort frigates attempted to respond, but their tactics were too rigid, too predictable. The Humanity's Dawn danced between their shots, moving in ways that defied conventional space combat doctrine. Each maneuver was a calculated insult to Dynasty military precision. Picking up new transmissions, Turner called out. Multiple frequencies. The sector's watching this. One of the frigates exploded, its power core overloaded by the impossible energy patterns bombarding it. The second broke formation, something unprecedented in Dynasty naval history, and retreated at full speed. The cargo ships are surrendering, Roberts reported, surprise evident in his voice. They're asking for asylum. Mitchell stood from her command chair. Send them the coordinates to Catal's resistance base, and make sure our transmission is still broadcasting. Time for the next phase. She opened a channel to all frequencies, to all those watching. You've just witnessed what the Dynasty calls impossible. Their perfect systems, their unbreakable patterns, their lies. Humanity survived because we adapt, because we combine the best of all worlds into something new. We don't need their order. We don't need their rules. The bridge crew watched as response signals began flooding in from across the sector. Ships in hiding, colonies under Dynasty control, even merchant vessels tired of imperial restrictions. All of them reaching out, inspired by the sight of the impossible becoming possible. Multiple Dynasty response fleets detected, Turner warned. They're mobilizing everything in the sector. Good, Mitchell replied, a fierce smile on her face. Let them come. Every time they fail to stop us, every time their perfect tactics break against our adaptability, more will join us." She turned to Reyes. "Plot our next course. Let's show them what else is possible." The Humanity's Dawn vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind burning dynasty ships and broken imperial doctrine. But more importantly, it left hope, spreading like wildfire through a galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to dream of freedom. The dynasty capital world of Nexus Crown filled the Humanity's Dawn's view screen, its crystalline towers reaching into the atmosphere like jagged teeth. Hundreds of warships orbited the planet in perfect geometric patterns, a display of power and precision that had kept the Empire unchallenged for centuries. "Status report," Mitchell commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Resistance fleet in position," Turner reported. "Kittle's ships are ready on our mark. The Dynasty still hasn't detected our stealth ships." The plan was insane by any rational standard. While the bulk of the Resistance fleet engaged the Dynasty armada head-on, the Humanity's Dawn would leave a small strike force through the chaos to reach the surface. Their target, the ancient control center buried beneath the Imperial Palace. "Remember," Hayes said, reviewing the protocol data one final time, "we'll only have one chance at this. The Dynasty's neural dampening fields will try to suppress the human patterns needed to activate the system." Mitchell nodded. "Then we'll just have to improvise. Like always." She opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, execute Operation Stormbreak." The Resistance fleet burst from hyperspace like a swarm of angry insects, their modified weapons blazing with impossible energy signatures. The Dynasty formations began to shift, their perfect patterns trying to adapt to the chaos. "Now," Mitchell ordered. The Humanity's Dawn and 3 other ships dove through the growing battle, their hybrid stealth systems making them appear as nothing more than debris to Dynasty sensors. Robert's security modifications, combined with Kettle's crystalline cloaking technology, kept them invisible until they hit the atmosphere. "Multiple surface-to-space batteries targeting," Roberts warned. "They may not see us, but they're filling the sky with fire." "Maria, start the sequence," Mitchell commanded. Navigator Reyes initiated the most dangerous maneuver they'd ever attempted. The Humanity's Dawn began to spin, its modified hull plates dispersing energy in a spiral pattern that confused the automated defense systems. Behind them, their escort ships followed the same crazy dance. "Ground approach in 30 seconds, Reyes called out. "Hold on to something." The ship screamed through the lower atmosphere, its hull glowing from the heat of entry. Dynasty defense towers tracked them with increasing desperation, but their targeting systems couldn't lock onto the impossible patterns of movement. 5 seconds to landing, Reyes announced. "May whatever gods exist help us all." The Humanity's Dawn slammed into the palace landing pad with controlled violence, its modified landing struts absorbing impact forces that should have shattered them. Before the dust settled, Mitchell was leading her strike team out the main airlock. "Guards approaching from the east wing," Roberts reported through the comm as they rushed toward the palace entrance. "Standard Dynasty response pattern." "Then we go west," Mitchell replied. "Hayes, where's that control center?" 200 meters below us, the science officer responded, consulting her modified scanner. The Dynasties built layers of security around it, but they never imagined anyone would actually reach this far. The team fought their way through ornate corridors, using the palace's own perfect symmetry against its defenders. Dynasty guards, trained to protect specific approaches, found themselves outflanked by routes their tactical doctrine declared impossible. "The neural dampening is getting stronger," Hayes warned as they descended deeper into the palace. "They're trying to suppress any human brain patterns." Mitchell felt the pressure building in her head, like a fog trying to cloud her thoughts. "Push through it. The Dynasty's about to learn that suppressing humanity only makes us stronger." They reached the ancient chamber just as alarms began blaring throughout the palace. The control center's architecture was identical to the facility they'd found months ago, but here it hummed with power. Multiple Dynasty elite guards approaching, Roberts warned. "We need to do this now." Mitchell stepped onto the activation platform, fighting against the neural dampening that tried to shut down her mind. "Hayes, start the sequence." The chamber's crystals began to pulse with light as Hayes initiated Protocol Omega. Dynasty guards burst through the doors, their weapons ready, only to freeze in confusion as the ancient machinery responded to human neural patterns in ways their tactical databases couldn't explain. "The dampening field," Mitchell gasped, her vision blurring. "It's too strong." "Then we'll do this together," Hayes said, stepping onto the platform beside her captain. One by one, the rest of the strike team joined them, their combined human neural patterns overwhelming the Dynasty's suppression technology through sheer determination. The chamber erupted with light as Protocol Omega recognized their presence. Above them, throughout the palace and across the entire planet, ancient systems began to awaken. The Dynasty's perfect order was about to meet humanity's chaotic potential, and the galaxy would never be the same. The wave of energy from Protocol Omega swept across the galaxy like a tide of consciousness, breaking the Dynasty's hold one mind at a time. In the palace control center, Captain Mitchell and her crew watched through the ancient facilities displays as centuries of oppression began to unravel. "Neural network established," Hayes reported, her voice filled with wonder. "The protocol is. It's not just breaking the Dynasty's control. It's helping species understand each other. Really understand." Through the chamber's crystalline windows, they could see Dynasty guards lowering their weapons, their rigid postures softening as new awareness flooded their minds. The perfect order that had defined their civilization for generations gave way to something more profound: genuine connection. Multiple Dynasty ships powering down weapons. Turner's voice came through the comm. "The fleet, they're standing down. All of them." Above the capital world, the Resistance fleet watched in amazement as the Dynasty's perfect formations dissolved. Warships that had been firing on them moments before now broadcast messages of confusion, then understanding, and finally hope. "Catal is reporting similar responses across all sectors," Roberts added. "The Dynasty's neural control over their subject worlds is breaking down. They're free to think for themselves again." Mitchell stepped away from the activation platform, her legs shaky but her eyes clear. "Not just think for themselves. The protocol is showing them what we discovered. That strength comes from combining differences, not enforcing uniformity." Through the facility's monitors, they watched as the change spread. On thousands of worlds, beings of all species began to shake off centuries of conditioning. The Dynasty's perfect order had kept them isolated, unable to truly connect or cooperate. Now, guided by the human neural patterns encoded in Protocol Omega, they began to bridge those divisions. "Incoming transmission," Turner announced. "It's the Dynasty High Command." The image that appeared showed not the usual array of stern Dynasty leaders, but a group of beings struggling to process their new reality. Their spokesperson, still wearing the ornate robes of office, spoke with newfound humility. We understand now. For centuries, we believed order came from control, from making everyone follow our patterns. We were wrong. Real stability comes from adaptation, from growth, from the very chaos we fought so hard to suppress. Engineer Cole's voice came through next, reporting from the humanity's dawn. "Captain, you need to see this. The hybrid technologies we created. Other ships are already starting to adapt them. Species that never worked together are combining their knowledge in ways the Dynasty always prohibited." Hayes studied the protocol's data streams, shaking her head in amazement. "It's not just technology. The protocol is facilitating cultural exchange, diplomatic connections, even artistic collaboration. Everything the Dynasty suppressed is flowering at once." "Because that's what humans do best," Mitchell replied. "We take different pieces and make them into something new." The Dynasty saw that as a threat. Now the galaxy can see it as an opportunity. Over the next few hours, reports flooded in from across Dynasty space. Centuries of rigid hierarchy dissolved as species began to work together naturally, without coercion. The dynasty's perfect patterns gave way to organic cooperation, guided by the human gift for adaptation and innovation. The humanity's dawn emerged from the palace to find a changed capital world. The crystalline towers remained, but now they pulse with combined energy signatures from a dozen different technologies. Ships of all species filled the skies, their crews working together to establish new networks of trade and communication. The dynasty ships are requesting permission to join the fleet, Turner reported with a smile. They want to learn our impossible tactics. Teach them, Mitchell ordered. Show them everything. That's what Protocol Omega was designed for, not to replace one form of control with another, but to let everyone contribute their strengths. As the crew returned to their ship, they passed groups of beings from different species deep in conversation, sharing ideas that would have been forbidden days earlier. The dynasty's perfect order was gone, replaced by something more chaotic, but infinitely more alive. The humanity's dawn rose into the crystal-studded sky, no longer the last free human ship, but the first of a new fleet dedicated to exploration and exchange. They had done more than break chains. They had shown the galaxy how to forge new bonds, stronger than any empire because they grew from choice rather than coercion. Humanity's gift for adaptation, for bringing together the best of all worlds, had transformed from a threat into a beacon. The dawn they had brought wasn't just their own, but one shared by all species ready to embrace a future built on diversity rather than dominance.